Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We are going to continue the last chapter of advanced structure, al-jamu, which means plural. We have already learned that in Balagha, we have sound plurals and broken plurals. And some words all have both. Some words only have sound plurals, some words only have broken plurals, and some words have both. Now, in Balagha, if there is no alternate way, then no point in asking why it was said that way. Like, for example, if you have a word which has sound plural and broken plural, then you can ask that, why at a certain place sound plural was used and why at another place broken plural was used. If the meaning was just to tell that, they are more than one, they are more than two, basically, then why use sound and at one place and why broken? So, for example, these two isms, which are Zar and Ala, they do not have an alternate. They have a set pattern, and that's how their plurals look like. But in other cases, you have basically two considerations. So first of all, you have al-qilla wal-kathra. So in plurals, and also some plurals, in terms of iradatul hadfi wa iradatul ismiyati. So these are two considerations that you have to keep in mind while determining, what's the reason behind a certain plural given. Now, qilla wal kathra is usually used for inanimate objects, objects which do not move. Sound plural basically is called al-qilla, which usually indicate 1 till 10. Quantity, which is less, in terms of quantity, which is 1 to 10. Al-kathra usually indicates broken plural, which is, usually indicate al-kathra, which is 11 plus, more in quantity. Also, iradatul hadisi, so ism behaves as a fail. That means the ism is kind of carrying out there's a strong element of, action in it. And in Radatul Ismiyati, ism behaves as a noun. So over here, if you see a plural, that means that the action that, uh, that entity is kind of carrying out, that is, more like, that is, it's basically translated in that. So let's look at it further. Now since we've already studied this in the previous chapter about both these and with examples. So we are going to now move forward and look at uh, different, like for example, if ism is, for example, intended, and then you have broken plurals in it. We know that, in iradatul hadithi, sound plurals are used, and iradatul ismiyati, broken plurals are used. Now, in broken plurals, you have many patterns. So let's look at what is the significance of each pattern. So, for example, over here we see fu'alun pattern. Then we also see fa'alatun pattern. We see fu'alun pattern. We see fawa'ilu, which is used for feminine fa'il pattern. And then we see fu'lanun. Then we see fa'ala, fu'ila, what is this? And fa'ala. Let me just correct this. So yeah, so it's fu'ala and fa'ala. So let's move forward. And then we have another pattern, which is fu'ala'u and fi'alun. And then we have ala wazn al masdar. That means that it looks like a masdar, but it's actually a broken plural. And please remember that we are talking about al-kathra. All right. First of all, we are talking about ismiya, iradatul ismiya and kasra. Let me just add it over here. So yeah, so we're talking about al-kathra, which is more than 10, basically 11 plus. And also remember that we are talking about iradatul ismiya. That means a noun is intended as a noun. Okay, that's different from iradatul hadfi. Now, when you have fu'alun pattern, what does it signify? Basically, al-kathra and abundance in action, not people. Now let's understand this. This is a bit different from iradatul hadathi. In iradatul hadathi, you are actually, talking about the action taking place. For example, let's go back to this. If you look at this, iradatul hadasi, sorry, sound plural first of all is used, and ism is not translated as an ism. It's translated as a mudari. Over here, if you see, khazinina, it's not translated as keepers. It's translated and you do not at all store it. So you see, wama antum lahu bikhazinina. So this is not translated as an ism. It is translated as a mudari. All right. This is the difference between iradatul hadathi and what we are going to now study. So please keep this in mind that it's translated as and because antum is plural. So in order to match this, it has to be khazinina, which is supposed to be plural. But otherwise, it's actually meant, it's translated as a mudari. Now let's come to what we are studying. So now, if you look at this, there are a few pointers for a few examples, in fact. So readers, if you have readers in mind. Now, a lot of people read. That means there are a lot of people. In terms of people, a lot of them read. And then he reads a lot. So we're talking about people, plural, of course, but in terms of they read a lot, each one of them read a lot. So we are basically talking about them. Similarly, huffazun. So hafiz, huffazun, basically it's either a large number of memorizers or memorizers who memorize a lot. So memorizers, yes, plural, there are more than two, but people who memorize a lot. So you see the fail is more like action is the main focus. So these two, if you see the ones that I have boxed, he reads a lot and memorizers who memorize a lot. This is the true meaning of this pattern when it comes as a broken plural. So remember, it means abundance in the action of those people are performing. It's not abundance in people, more in, of course, there are more than two people. That's why plural is used. But actually, what it's implying is that the action that they carry out a lot. Now we have a few examples over here. Over here, if you see in this ayah, inna lazina kafaru wasaddu an sabilillahi thumma matu wa hum kuffarun falan yaghfirallahu lahum. So disbelievers. Simple plural would be disbelievers. But what's the significance? Over here, if you see, they have mentioned matu, which means died. People who, while they are dying. Now, again, over here, we have another ayah, which has kuffarun, this pattern in it. And in this, again, we have yamutu, that means, mention of death. Another one over here, kuffarun, and we again mention matu, which is, disbelievers and die while there. Now, what does this pattern, kuffarun, signify over here in this ayah? If you see in all these three ayahs, what's common? The mention of death. So kuffarun basically just means disbelievers used in the context of death. That means by the time these people who have been disbelieving, who have been doing kufr, they, by the time they die, by the time the death approaches them, they have um, they have done so much kufr, they have been involved in so much kufr. That's why this kuffarun, this pattern is used. So that means the action inside this pattern was done a lot. Let's look at the other pattern, which is fa'alatun. Now, in this, focus is on the occupation, the label, or the classification of a particular group. So there is a classification, the label over here. Now let's see how does it work. So over here, if you see Surah Mulk, takadu tamayyazu min al-ghayzi kullama ulqiya fiha fawjun sa'alahum khazanatuha fa'alatun khazanatuha alam ya'tikum. Now, what's it saying? Every time a company is thrown into it, its keepers ask them. In another one, so over here, the focus is on the occupation or label, which is the gatekeepers. Now, in another example, over here, we see hafazatan, which is guardians, which is over here translated as guardians, which means again it's a group of people. It's a classification. So that is what it's referred to over here. Whether they are guarding at the moment or not, or they guard a lot, don't know. Keepers over here, the gatekeepers basically. I think I should fix this and make it gatekeepers. So over here, if you see whether they are watching a lot or not, that's not the point of discussion over here. It's just a classification of people. So if you see, let's summarize this. So basically, there's a lack of action or movement. Whether that movement is happening right now or not, whether it happens a lot or less, doesn't matter. Also, it just refers to a category of people. All right. So this is what this pattern signifies. Let's look at fa'alun. Now, here the focus is on individuals. So there are people individually who are carrying out some actions which are apparent. For example, eating is an apparent action. You can see it, and it's also an action which is, which is spread over a short period of time, not something which is spread over a long period of time. For example, if you're building a house, it's going to take a lot of your time. So it's not something like that. It's something which is short and which is something very apparent that you can see. Now over here, if you see in this ayah, tarahum rukka'an sujjadan. Now these are fu'alun, rukka'un, sujjadun are the patterns which are following this pattern, and they are you see them in ruku and prostrating. Let me just highlight this. So these people, ruku and prostration. It's something very apparent, and it's something that does not take very long. So rukka'an and sujjadan are, on the pattern of alone, because ruku and prostration are physical actions. They are apparent, and they are span over a short period of time. So this is what this pattern signifies. Now let's come to fawa'ilu, which is actually derived from a feminine file. So basically, uh, like Raki, what do you call, Nasiratun, Sami'atun, so feminine file, and their broken plural. I'm not saying that these broken plurals have this pattern, but usually this broken plural is derived from a feminine file. Like, for example, we have over here ayah from Surah Luqman. Over here, Rawasiya, which means pegs, or basically it means mountains. And Rasiyatun is the feminine file, and the broken plural is Rawasiyu. And pegs or mountains, which means, another example is Kawa'idu, which means women who are past the age of childbearing. So over here, Qa'idatun is the singular, is a feminine file, and Kawa'idu, it's the broken plural, which means sitting or stationary movement, or figuratively, you can say a woman past the age of childbearing, not very, that way active. So what does it imply? Basically, it is talking about mostly inanimate objects which do not really move. We have a figurative, use over here. It's not exception. It's basically something which is used figuratively. And also it implies stillness or lack of movement. So these are the 4 patterns. The other 4 patterns we are going to do in the next part, which is going to be the last part of the chapter. However, if there are any outstanding questions related to this part of the chapter and the previous one, please feel free to ask on the group, and one of us will be able to help you, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.